Hi everyone, it's Shar. Welcome back to my channel. So here I'm placing debug items because I had this idea for our haunted house let's play. Obviously I'm built in a haunted house, as you can see from the title of this video, that I wanted it to kind of be like this hidden graveyard where bodies are dumped, but like people don't really know that. No one like wades in the water. It's not very obvious, but there are just like little bits and pieces that are super creepy there. So you see like little dolls' heads in random places, and there's a sword. By the way, that's the murder weapon. But what I'm talking about, we need to find a place to start this video. So we're doing the speed build for the house for our haunted let's play, our paranormal let's play. If you didn't watch the previous video where you would have met the family that lives in this house, then I suggest you go watch that, because it's going to make this video make a little bit more sense and just set the scene for the let's play and how it's going to work. Now I'm taking inspiration from a photo that I have pulled up of just like a really spooky Victorian style house. Obviously I'm not an architect, I can't do Victorian style houses, but I'm doing my best in this one because I wanted to have like this let's play be a very stereotypical haunted let's play, because again, I said I love ghost shows, I love Paranormal Witness, I love my ghost story, and I wanted to kind of replicate that sense and that same vibe in this house. So the family that lives here, you all know, is our single mom, Eden, and her two daughters, her teen daughter, Paige, and her younger daughter, Zoe. And they're going to move into this house. But this house has a very dark history that Eden is aware of, but Paige and Zoe are not. And even then, I would say Eden does not know the full history and the full details, only the most recent occurrence in this household. So in this household, there was a fairly large family that lived here, and they were called the Chandler family. And the Chandler family consisted of quite a number of kids, all teenagers, and a number of them adopted. And I believe there were one or two parents that lived here. But shortly after moving in, one of their sons just started to act quite strange, very out of character, and incredibly intimidating and scary in a lot of ways. But he tried his best to hide it away, although it was obvious to some people. And one day, this teenage son, I'm forgetting his name, but he was one of the oldest sons of the Chandler family, said that he was going to make his family dinner. Meanwhile, he poisoned it. He made puffer fish nigiri for their dinner, and he did poison it, and his whole family was murdered. I think dealing with the whole reconciliation of, I just killed my whole family, their son went on a spree. It was quite a while before authorities found out that he had murdered his family, and in the meantime, any random Sims that kind of walked into his home, he would wait in the back. You see where all the trees and stuff are at, and he would ambush them as they were walking on that path and bring them in. He managed to kill 3 more people before he was ever caught, and even then he was not caught. He ultimately ended up committing suicide in this very house, hence one of the locked rooms that you're going to see in this speed build. Now, when he ambushed those 3 Sims, they actually died in very gruesome ways. His family was poisoned, so they died very painful deaths, but they weren't aware at the time of kind of what happened until, I guess, after the fact, when it was too late. So with these 3 Sims, 2 of them he actually electrocuted to death. It was horrific, not before torturing them. And the other Sim he actually locked into a steam room and turned the heat up to the point where the Sim's skin would boil, and the Sim literally boiled alive from the inside out. This is very gruesome, but as you all know, my channel is not really intended for children. I have disclaimers in all of my videos that you should not be watching these videos if you are under the age of 13. Just because it is a video game, it is still a video game that is actually rated for teens. So yeah, anyway, that's the history of the household and kind of what happened. And in the backyard is actually a number of just victims that have over the past just not been discovered. Now, they were able to locate most of the Chandler families and their body, but there were 2 missing bodies, and of course the 3 bodies of the Sims that were murdered were never found. And the reason they were never found is because they were thrown into that puddle behind the house. Now, you have to use your imagination here because we are limited to lot restrictions, so if I wasn't limited to a lot, that little back kind of pond that you see would actually be a lot bigger and be surrounded by forest and be very, very deep. I imagine that this house would sit on several acres of land, probably 25 plus acres of land. So it would have been very difficult for authorities to locate these missing bodies. Now, of course, paranormal investigators have heard of the household, but no one had the chance to kind of investigate. There was one family that moved in shortly after the tragedy with the Chandler family, but they didn't stay very long. I think they were there for a total of a month before they ran out and they moved out. And some of the furniture you see in the household belongs to that family, but they never called paranormal investigators. They were just like, I'm not doing this. I'm out. And here we have Eden and we have Zoe and we have Paige are moving into this household because Eden was able to secure it with for a bargain, right? She had been saving up for quite a while. She had about 40,000 simoleons saved up, and normally this house would cost upwards of 70, 80, 90,000 simoleons, but because of its very dark history and the fact that no one really wants to live here, that's why she was able to get it for so cheap and why it came part furnished. And that was actually a really difficult thing to kind of balance and navigate, because I wanted to have property that was in there and like furniture that was in there, but I didn't want it to make it look like it was fully lived in. I wanted to have a sense that it was part furnished. The necessities were there, but not everything was there. And I'm just getting very excited to play with this household and play with this family and just really get into it. I gave the lot a few traits, which included like a mean vibe, creepy crawlies, because it's going to add to the discomfort of the home. Of course, it's a haunted house. It has that lot. And then there was something else that I gave it, but I'm not sure what that trait was, but something that would add to that effect of everyone is extremely uncomfortable and short-tempered, which leads me back into the more in-depth history of this house, right? Because we are in Forgotten Hollow, and this idea is that the previous family, the biggest tragedy that everyone in the sim world kind of knows, is the Chandler family. But prior to the Chandler family, remember I said that their teenage son only started acting weird after he moved into this house. And unfortunately, he was one of the Sims that was possessed by a vengeful spirit. And if we look into the history of this house, it actually has a very long history of family tragedies where a member of the family does go ahead and kill someone in the family or kill everyone in the family. And the first occurrence of that was a mortal family that moved in shortly after the founding of Forgotten Hollow, which you all know that story. The Forgotten Hollow was founded by Vlad and the vampire and all that stuff. So that family moved in, and the father actually was a really nasty guy, incredibly short-tempered, and essentially slaughtered his entire family in their sleep. And that was the beginning of this very dark history in the household. But of course, we can't forget that we're in Forgotten Hollow, and it has its origins in vampires. And if vampires ever originated anywhere, I imagine that it was some kind of dark spell or curse having to do with the witches of the sim world, but I don't know. I imagine it was some kind of ritual that went horribly wrong. The house would not have been there, but I imagine that it would have been on this lot. So this house really does have a very in-depth history for what happened, and hopefully we can evolve some of that into there. Now you're going to see little bits and pieces from the paranormal pack that I'm trying to include here, but mostly I'm limiting myself to a few packs. And that's the Realm of Magic, it is the Vampires pack, and it is the Paranormal Stuff pack, because I wanted it to kind of include a lot of the occult type stuff. And I'm not very good at floor plans. You can find this on my gallery, which I will leave the link or like my username on the gallery in the description below so you can have a sense of it. This is going to be part of my save file, so you can find that original story and this context in that save file. But I was going back and forth about whether or not I want to continue my save file, because since I have the gallery back, I was like, well, I don't need the save file anymore. I can just download stuff off the galleries. But I think the reason why I like creating a save file, even though I know The Sims 5 will be out before my save file is ready, is truly because it challenges me to build different types of households, different styles of house, and just create different Sims, create different storylines, and it really is a creative endeavor for me. So I really enjoy doing it. But anyway, I'm trying to add touches to this house. And I think the quirk for this kind of Victorian style house, I'm putting gravestones in the back because I found them in the vampire pack. But I wanted to have real gravestones. I just couldn't work it out, and I couldn't get the Sims gravestones, even though I was killing them as part of the storyline. But anyway, I digress. The quirk for this kind of Victorian style house is that the hallways are absolutely massive and the rooms are not that big, and of course it's not open concept at all. You all know I love an open concept house, but because we're going with a more historical style house, it is not open concept. And we have a picture of Gidry the ghost. I don't know why he's there. He's just there. Okay, he's there. We have a paranormal team. It's part of the house. And you see me adding like these vampire holes in the walls, the peeling paint, the scratches, the smaller holes that are kind of like bullet holes. And that's just to add to the context of the house and kind of make it seem, right, like that it is an older home. It really wasn't taken care of that well. And the family, like I said, was in there for a couple of months. I think the family's original intention was to renovate the house and to turn something very modern and flip it. But obviously, as soon as they moved in there, they're like, we're not doing this. And they essentially abandoned it. And they lost a huge profit margin, but that is what they did. They could not deal with the paranormal activity in the household. So this is not the kind of house that I would normally build. You all know I like modern houses, I like contemporary houses, I like very cute, like cottagey style houses with lots of colors, and this house is not it. I would never use any of these wallpapers in my natural builds. I would never use most of these floorings. I wouldn't use most of these items. But that's the fun of the challenge, right? Is that I had to build a house that I would, in my mind, associate being spooky and creepy in many ways, and also just be something that is completely different from what I would normally build. And that is what I'm challenging myself to do here. And hopefully it's not too gaudy and like ugly, but even if it is, it's adding to the haunted house effect. So now we're on to the kitchen, and again, I'm limiting the packs that I use here. I do eventually expand to include things like laundry day because I needed the family to have somewhere they could do their laundry, which reminds me I totally forgot to include hampers in this house. That is my biggest fault with building. Some people forget trash cans, some people forget sinks. I forget to add hampers when I add in the washing and drying machines to my households. But anyway, I wanted to make this kitchen seem a little bit older, so I went with a green, which I really liked, and I wanted to have a small dining space. Now, realistically, of like this old school Victorian house, there would be a formal dining room, but just with how I laid everything out and how I chose to have the quirk of the house be like these massive hallways that are just kind of empty space, it didn't work out. Otherwise, I would have had a formal dining room and a downstairs powder room. And if I was really going to do like a Victorian style house, right, wouldn't it be that there would be a lot of like pointless staircases and random tiny rooms and really awkward like platform heights, and that is what this would actually look like. So I'm working on that, but this kitchen I think is super cute, and I'm really happy with how it turned out and just kind of how claustrophobic and small that it feels. And I'm moving on to the living room now, where I'm trying to add more of this, the family that lived here after the Chandler family effect, because the Chandler family would have been recent enough that everyone would know the story, but far enough in the past that their house decor would have still been older, if that makes sense. So the things that you see here that are a little bit more modern, like those chairs in the background, right? That would have belonged to the Chandler family. But that glass table and the couches would have belonged to the family that lived there briefly, because it's more of like that 70s style aesthetic. Like that would have been their stuff. So there is a blend. Like I said, the house comes part furnished. Like every room has the furniture that it needs, but the house is not definitely like fully decorated. There are definitely a lot of empty spaces and empty rooms. Now we move on to the upstairs, and in the upstairs I am definitely struggling to figure out a layout. You see that I normally don't place windows on the back or side of my house because I like to figure out what the layout is first. And for this one, I decided that we're going to stick with that same kind of idea that Victorian houses are quirky and that space isn't really used as well as they could be used. I could be forgetting that. You could be screaming in the comments, girl, that's blank type of house, not Victorian houses, whatever. My idea for this is that this layout is a little bit odd and a little bit strange. So the second floor obviously is massive and could have had room for like 5 or 6 bedrooms, but instead there's just like very oversized rooms, an unnecessary amount of bathrooms, and this room in the back that is locked and no one has opened. And Eden's realtor only request was, please do not open that room. Like that was a request from any family, is that you keep that room locked. But of course we know that Eden has a teenage daughter, and we're going to figure out what's going to happen with that storyline without me revealing too much. I'm really trying to find this delicate balance here of not my style, but also like kind of ugly. And I think that's what I'm going for with the upstairs room. Is at some point someone tried to renovate it, but they didn't really know what they were doing, so they put down like this purple carpet, which I think is hideous, but they did. And then the room layout is super awkward. I think this upstairs room was always meant to be like an attic, but at some point a bathroom was added in, and a closet was added in as well. So instead someone just threw a bedroom up there. I imagine that the family that lived here briefly at some point put up a bed up there just to get away from the chaos of what was going on downstairs. I think of all the rooms, the upstairs bedroom is the most peaceful. So we move on to the master bedroom, and then we're going to move into what will eventually become Zoe's room. Now, Zoe's room, the furniture is there. I'm not sure where it comes from, although I have a feeling that the teen son who murdered everyone probably lived in that room, but I don't know. So the master bedroom, again, I'm trying to keep it really simple. Like, this room is super oversized, but it doesn't make sense that she would move into this house and the master bedroom would be completely done. And you see I placed these markings kind of all over the room, but they're kind of hard to see, and that's the intention, is that you wouldn't know that they were there. And of course there was a lot of darkness going on in this house, aside from the gruesome murders of dozens of Sims. Okay, there was a lot going on in this house. So anyway, I'm doing the bathrooms now. Bathrooms are super boring, whatever. That's what is getting done. But like I said, it's just been really fun to build this house because it's not my style at all. Like, I would never live in a house like this, and I would normally never build a house that looks like this. But it was such a hard balance of like, this house has everything that you could technically need. It should still be older in its aesthetic, and I'm not sure what the timeline is of this household, and the meaning like Aiden and her daughters and when they're moving in, but I'm imagining it's probably like the 90s, early 2000s, which obviously we had technology then, but it didn't fit with my vibe that there would be a computer and a TV in this household. So the entertainment is the massive library that's downstairs. So now I narrowed it back down just to the paranormal stuff, and I'm trying to find ways to add little bits of clutter, and then I realized I really don't need to do that because the household is not supposed to be decorated nicely. It's supposed to have the basic necessities of what you would need to live, not millions of paintings and nice little knickknacks and stuff like that. It would literally have the necessities and a few things that have remained over time, and that's the idea of it. There's no cohesion here. It's just furniture that was brought into the house by the families that lived here and ultimately left, whether that means they left without a body or they left just freaked out and moved out of this house. So I'm making sure I add mirrors to each of these bathrooms because that's another thing that I tend to forget. And I'm adding things like lighting. Now, these bathrooms are the only ones that have that kind of modern lighting, just because the lighting that comes with Realm of Magic, Vampires, and the Paranormal pack are very limited and very big, and they don't work a lot with these smaller spaces. So now I'm just going through and I'm adding like the spider webs and the holes in the walls and the peeling paint and the cracks, just again to get that sense that this is not a really nice house. It is a beautiful house in some ways, but I wanted the house to maintain that kind of dark energy that was in here. This is the only item I use from Get to Work. If you see that listed on the gallery, it is just that closet, which you can easily replace with anything. And again, I tried to limit myself to base game and to Realm of Magic, Vampires, and the Paranormal pack, because I don't like when I go into builds and there's like every single pack that has been used. I do try to limit it, and if the gallery lists more than those packs, it's very small things that you wouldn't even notice were missing, but I don't think I use outside of those packs. And sometimes the gallery does tend to list my things as custom content. This build does not have any custom content, so it is supposed to be creepy. You see me adding these final traits here. It is a house where you move in and you start to feel very angry and aggressive, and spirits tend to latch on to someone. So we're gonna have to see how that plays out. But that is the end of this build. I think I'm just looking through it, making sure that I have what I need. I realized I forgot a trash can at this point, so I do go ahead and add a trash can to the kitchen and then one outdoors because you need both. But I hope that you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you all in the next video for the start of our Let's Play.